up there?
No.
Okay.
It just,
Does anybody here need to do anything?
no.
Oh, okay.
Neither did work or
All good. All good.
No, it's
Deeper.
So welcome to the Camarillo Library. Everybody on this side of the room gets a prize. Well, hey, my name's George Winkler, and I work here in charge of the business collection at the library. It's probably one of the best business collections of any library in Southern California, just so you know. And it was made possible to us by a generous gift by Russell Fisher. He passed away in 2006 at the age of 93. He left $2.7 million to the Camarillo Public Library just to develop its business resources. So, thank you. So they don't let me have all of that. They give me a small piece every month. But those resources go towards developing our business collection here, books, audiobooks, digital resources as well. We have tools here that can help you figure out, if you're doing sales, where these businesses exist in that industry that you're targeting. You can look at size of employees for that company. You can look at estimated expenditures in certain categories if you're selling particular products. We could also create, today, for example, I created 3 different locations. Somebody was trying to figure out where they wanted to locate their business. So 3 different locations we picked, and those are based off of real estates that are available. And then we looked at community demographics within a 1-3-5 mile radius, as well as their competition. So we have tools that you can do that with here. And I'm available as well to help you through that process, because a lot of those tools are kind of difficult to read through. So on the topic of sales, Brian Tracy says you can turn your car into a continual learning environment by listening to audiobooks. So we have 2 ways you can do that. We have audio CDs, which you'll find on the 2nd story, or also downstairs in our new book selection. And we also have Overdrive, which is an app that you can download on your phone or tablet, and you can just download these things wirelessly. So all you need is your Camarillo library card and a phone. So great resources on there. I think we have about 400 audiobooks.
George, what's that app called?
Overdrive.
Overdrive.
Yeah, so if you're going on a business trip or whatnot, you can just sit in the airport and you're bored and you forgot to bring a book. Well, just go and download one for free. So you're welcome. So yeah, we have some great talks. This week we had a fellow Toastmembers master, or I think he's the president of one of the categories. Ivan Oberon, he talked about accomplishing your goals and not just setting them. That was a great talk. Tonight we have Scott Friedman, great talk on sales. We also have Getting Things Done, a workshop on Friday. It's a full-day workshop that starts at 8:30, goes till 4:30. But it's a full life system, how do you capture your commitments and follow through on them. So it's great for both work and your personal life, because sometimes it's really hard to coordinate those two. So yeah, we have a ton of great events. You can find these in our newsletter, which are all throughout the library, or on our website. Or if you're interested, just let me know. I can add you to my email newsletter, which is only business events. And I don't really spam, so don't worry about it. But so to introduce Scott, we have a guest today. He's going to be a future speaker of ours, so we're going to give him a little warm-up session today. This is Wayne.
You are in for a treat tonight. All of those resources that have been described to you in the last few minutes, they've all been focused in a 30-year career by our speaker tonight. He's an independent businessman, formed his own company, Friedman Financial Incorporated. He's got 2 websites. And if you want to learn something on the evening before you go to sleep, he has 2 books that he's published. He's been interviewed on television. And the key thing that I want you to know about Scott is he's a man of integrity and a man of excitement. He walks his walk and talks his talk, and you can believe what he tells you. He's speaking tonight, the voice of experience. And his experience is not only broad with all of these different areas, but it goes very deep, because he does daily meditations and gets introspective ideas and guidance. So he's a full-rounded person, and today he's going to give you the whole enchilada. So what a perfect way to end your day and begin your evening. Please join me in welcoming your speaker tonight, Scott Friedman.
It's 1976. I'm in the placement office at UC Berkeley, getting ready to start my interview with Union Carbide for a chemical engineering position, the degree I'm going to get in a few months. The sales manager says, Scott, have you ever thought about a career in sales? No. What's your idea of sales? Pushing things on people they don't want or need. Anybody ever felt like that about sales? That's where I started. Having ended up as a salesman, I had to find some better way to think of sales that was honest, that I could get behind, that I could believe in. And I came up with sales is the compassionate response to another's need. That made sense to me, and it was something I could live with. And I have made my 40-year career, actually, in sales out of that. The other big piece that I found was that honesty creates peace of mind. So in sales, so many times, people are just stressed out about trying to make the sales. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the sales process, and we're going to look at the various common aspects of sales that people cringe and hate. And we're going to find a different way to look at them. And the one commonality through all of this is, just as I took my definition of sales that wasn't really working for me that well, that it was pushing things on people they didn't want or need, and found a more honest representation of it, we're going to look at a whole bunch of different sales obstacles that are commonly encountered, and we're going to look at them from a more honest perspective to get a different point of view on them to make it a more enjoyable process. Because the truth of the matter is this: our default position is to have fun, to enjoy ourselves. And when we're not, it's because we are stressed. There's some conflict that is not getting resolved. So let's jump in, and the first place that a lot of us encounter initial sales is the phone call. And don't you that are in sales, don't you just love the phone call? They call up, they say, how much does it cost? And so many people are just stumped into how to respond to that. But when you understand that sales is the compassionate response to another's need, the answer can be, I don't know. I don't know what you need, so I don't know what product or service is going to serve you. So I can't give you a price because I don't even know what the proper product or service for you is. What I'd like to do, because what my commitment is to try to find out what your needs are and serve them. What I'd like to do is to sit down with you in person and have a conversation about it. Because the truth is, and you know this, is that the better the communication is, the better the outcome is. And everybody knows that communication in person is better than communication on the phone. And oh my God, don't even talk to me about email and text messages and how they get garbled, confused, misunderstood, and cause problems. This is going to be a little bit of an interactive thing that we're going to do, because it's one thing to listen to me pontificate, which I do. I mean, I love to pontificate. But it's a whole other thing for you to experience it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little role play. It's only going to be 1 minute per person. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. But the little role play is that one of the people is going to call up and ask for a product or service, and they're going to say, how much is it? And the other person is going to, in their own words, basically do what I just did, is explain to them that I need to know more about what you're looking for to really be able to help you, and the best way to do that is to have a face-to-face communication. Because it's one thing to have an idea and to listen to it, but when the words come out your mouth, it's a different experience. You start feeling, oh, this is more comfortable than I thought, this is less comfortable than I thought. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to find somebody, And for 1 minute, one of you is going to be the buyer, and for 1 minute, one of you is going to be the seller, and role play it, and then after a minute, I'll tell you to switch roles. So, have at it. Yeah, right here, right now.
Came in, got your name called. It occurred to me I might give a resource to you, and would you like to get
Now, Karen, I know that I want about 5,000.
I would expect
And it's a simple.
Let me ask you, what is the big house you'll have?
Okay, change sides. Everybody change sides.
Experience.
So now switch roles.
Together for 3 minutes, maybe face to face.
Okay, that's enough of that.
It's that.
See, it's always more fun when you guys get to play. Now we're at a point where we've actually got the meeting. And too often people in the meeting, they just start, have you ever heard of the sales, I don't know what you would call it, description that people show up and throw up? The salespeople shows up and they just start throwing everything they know about their product and service out there. In sales terminology, it's called show up and throw up. Don't do that. In the initial meeting, the first thing to focus on is building rapport. And the way that you do that is you find something about the other person that you're interested in, genuinely and sincerely interested in. And believe me, there's an old phrase, and it's true, and that's the average person can detect insincerity from across a crowded room, so you better be sincere. But find something about the person that you're sincerely interested and ask about it. Who here likes it when people are interested in them, sincerely and genuinely? Well, most of you are honest, because I know I do, and I know everybody else does, even if you didn't raise your hand. When you start doing that and you build that skill, and it is a skill to be built, but the more that you do that, the more people trust you, feel comfortable with you, and they'll share, because a lot of times people won't share what's really important to them and what all their considerations are and so forth. They want to be a little more comfortable with you before they're open with you. And that is the next big thing that you have to do. So now, because you enjoyed it so much the last time, we're going to do another role play, and this one is 2 minutes each, and this one is going to be much harder because you're going to need to pair up with somebody you don't know. And as the salesperson, your job is to find something about that person that is interesting to you and ask them about it. Go.
Hey, how you doing? I don't know. Here we go.
I kept looking at you and I was like, I know her. Josh, I know her.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. My name's Dan, by the way.
I'm Jane.
Nice to meet you, Jane. I love your necklace. Where did that come from?
It is labradorite. It's a necklace that I bought from a friend of mine.
Okay, wonderful.
They make genuine stones. They make jewelry out of genuine.
Oh, that's neat. You know, the reason it's interesting to me is because my grandfather used to tumble rocks and polish them and get them down to really pretty rocks. I got a whole jar of them that I received after he passed away.
Oh, nice. Excellent. The ones he's tossed all himself.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Would be interesting. Do you know what they are?
Some agates, I I don't know.
You
Jasper.
don't know Jaspers? Yeah.
Just a
yeah.
mixture.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he know about did he ever tell you about the stone?
Yeah, see, he knew all about them. I was just a little guy when he passed.
Yeah.
So I was only about 8.
It'll be fun to get to know that stuff because they're really helpful. Actually.
Yeah.
They're kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe just suggestion, but
No, absolutely. It's one of those things I've been thinking about picking up myself. Right.
yeah, there's a wealth of information on the web. Some of it a little on the
Yeah.
weirdy side, but mostly some of it pretty good.
Yeah, it might be fun.
Yes, yes. So I don't know.
It's okay.
I'm not so good at this.
So family, occupation, recreation.
Family occupation. Okay. Do you have children?
Oh, great time. Perfect.
Okay. So do you have children?
I do. I have two boys. One's they're both the youngest just graduated from Humboldt State and with a mathematics degree, and the other what's that?
Easy stuff.
Yeah, really. He talks about all these numbers that don't exist, and I have no idea. I just don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And my oldest son, he's 25. And he's actually an agent with me in New York Life.
Oh, excellent. Good.
Yeah.
And Master G, so he came along and your other son didn't.
Well, he hasn't decided what he wants to do yet.
Oh, he's still working on it.
Right.
So how has that been, your oldest son transitioning with you into the business?
No, he's not a salesperson. That's what we found out. I'm kicking him out of the business.
Personally, me either. I do consulting, but I'm not a salesperson. So it's hard to,
It's not that he's not good at presenting products and educating and that part of it. It's that he needs to pick up the phone and make that first call. I set the appointment.
Yeah.
If I take him to an appointment, he does great.
Right. Well, if he was to set up the appointment for somebody else, could he do it?
Yes. Oh, could he set the appointment for somebody else? No.
He's just not good on the phone.
No. He just hates it.
He's the door-to-door. He's the old-fashioned insurance guy that goes door-to-door.
Yeah, he would do better face-to-face. That's true.
Yeah.
This skill
Nice.
is
Jane.
really,
Jane.
really important.
Nice.
And for those of you that just came in, what we were talking about is the ability, when in a sales cycle, when you first meet with someone, to establish rapport with them. And the exercise was to find something that you're genuinely and sincerely interested in the other person and ask them about that. That was the exercise that they were doing. But the idea is that to build rapport so that people are comfortable with you and they'll be open with you. Because people that like you and trust you will give you all the information they can for you to help them. If they don't like and trust you, they just want to run. So you got to be sincere. So what I want everybody to do now is I want you to take stock of where you are in this continuum of being completely uncomfortable talking to new people and asking them about things and trying to determine what they're interested in, to being extremely comfortable and adept at it. And wherever you are is fine, but it's important to realize where you are, because then you can grow from that point. So even the most adept of you at this, everybody has room that they can improve in this. And this is such an important ability in sales, but in everything else too. And it's really worth your time and effort to develop this ability to determine things that are interesting in other people. I learned this from my wife. Carla and I, we used to go to these dog show meetings, and I'd be sitting there like a third wheel, uncomfortable, and she'd be engaged in this fascinating conversation and this tremendous depth with these people. And I was like, how do you do that? So I started studying her, and she has this quality of being fascinated by other people, genuinely and sincerely. And they recognize it, and they're just happy to tell her all about it. So this is good, I need to learn. So I've been studying and progressing along. I'm not up to where she is, but I'm making progress. The point is that it's really an can go any further, you have to make me a promise. They'll panic. And I say, you have to promise me that you'll let me know anytime you think something is wrong or you're unhappy, anytime you have a question, or anytime things change. Will you promise to pick up the phone and let me know? Because I'm much better at solving problems I know about than solving problems I don't know about. So far, nobody's refused to give me that promise. And I can't tell you how many sales that has saved. Because people call me up and they'll say, I'm not quite comfortable with this, and I say, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for asking the question. Let's get into it and get it straightened out. Because in most cases, problems that are honestly addressed can be solved. Okay, not in all cases, but certainly in most cases, they can be. The problems that make things blow up and not work are the problems that don't get addressed. So you frame that relationship. And then throughout the rest of the cycle, every time I have an email, I always end the email. As always, make sure you ask any questions that come up, make me aware of any problems or changes, as always. And then a lot of times, because so much is email, a lot of times I get an email request, and again, the first response in the email is always, thank you for asking the question. I appreciate that. And then I get into what the response is. So all of that builds trust with the people because clients want to know that you care about them, that you're there for them, to answer their questions. So I was telling this one client, I said, at the end of this sales cycle, if you haven't felt that I genuinely care about you, I really haven't succeeded because that's part of what I want to have happen. That's part of my measure for success. She was in sales. She says to me, well, if I don't feel that way, are you going to refund my fee? And I said, no. But still a goal. The point is that the second and third sale that you make to somebody are by far the most profitable sales. They're easier, they're smoother, there's less problem. You know how they communicate, vice versa. It works smoothly. So building that relationship is really important. Once you got that piece, then the next phase is to go into, and all this time, of course, you've been listening, is to go into what their objectives are. So throughout the course of the conversation and talking to them, getting to know them, learn something about what their priorities are, but ask specific questions. I have a mortgage company. So I asked, how much of a down payment are you planning to make? Do you know what your credit score is? I mean, specific data that I need to know in order to be able to tell them what products are available and to make a recommendation of the product. Or in my consulting business, I ask them, what are your objectives? You know, we go back and forth about what we could put together that would fit in terms of meeting their company objectives in the consulting business. But it's always an investigation, once that rapport is there, to find out what their objectives are and what they have, what resources do they have to work with. Do they have cash? Do they have money? There was a fellow, he wanted to improve communication in his company. And he really saw how I was getting better being a Toastmasters. And so he said, oh, would you help get my people involved in Toastmasters? And I said, well, the easiest way to do it would be to start a club right here. He didn't even know he could start a club at his company. So I was presenting him ways of accomplishing things that he hadn't realized. And he said, but I want you to come and get them excited about it, but I don't want you to tell them about an organization because I'm afraid if you tell them about an organization, they'll get turned off. And I said, well, we can make it about communication. And so we crafted the whole presentation to his leadership staff around communication, and then we kind of slid Toastmasters in the back after they'd already had a chance to participate and get a first-hand experience from what it was like. And then they wouldn't turn off because they didn't want to be part of an organization. They'd already experienced that they enjoyed doing it, and when I explained to them what you did as part of Toastmasters, they think, oh, well, good, we enjoyed that, so now we're not going to turn off. The point is, in the investigation, investigation phase is to learn everything you can about the objectives and the sensibilities of the client. And then, following that, it's to present a solution. And I always like to, and I always feel it's best and most respectful, and again, most honest, right? To say, my job is to present to you options that I feel will satisfy your objectives. Your job is to tell me whether or not you want to avail yourself of them. So it makes it very clear that I'm not trying to push them into anything. My job is just very clearly to say, you told me you wanted to have better communication skills for your employees. I'm suggesting that we go about it in this manner. What do you think? And we went back and forth. So it's that way. And people, nobody likes to be pushed into a sale. You made mention of Brian Tracy tapes. One of the things I heard on a Brian Tracy's tape was, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Forcing people into something is no long-term solution to anything. It's give them the opportunity to say, yes, I want to avail myself of that product or service because, yes, I believe it's going to get me where I want to go. And that's where you want to get. We keeping you up? It's my brother. I lost my place. But it's all of this, throughout this process, there should be a deeper and deeper trust and rapport that's built, and a friendship and an enjoyment. And you should be enjoying it all the time. I've seen salespeople, and I've felt this way a little bit, where they want to go in, I just want to get the signature on the document and run for the hills before they change their mind. Anybody been on either side of that one? The more time that you can spend, particularly initially, building that relationship, I call it emotional capital that gets you over the hard times, right? Because this is the real world, and in the real world, things happen, and sometimes we need goodwill to help us work through those things. And framing that relationship in a really constructive and positive and warm and honest and open way, taking interest in the people, goes a long way towards making that happen. Then comes, and if it hasn't been addressed already, in terms of talking about the options, the price, the dreaded price. And people are, too often in sales, take the attitude of, the more you make, the more I'm going to have to pay. So this is not a win-win deal. This is a win-lose deal. And I want to pay as little as possible to get as much as I can. It's a completely losing proposition. And just as we did in the phone conversation to talk about how do we reframe something that is initially put in a win-lose context, and we say something that's true and we build off of it. And this is what's true about pricing. What's fair is ultimately in everybody's best interest. Anybody want to argue with that? I haven't found anybody that's got the get up and go to want to argue with that. So let's have a conversation about what's fair. This is what I think what's fair, but it's not cast in stone, it's a range. Tell me what you, and this is why I think it's fair. Tell me what you think is fair, and let's have a conversation. There is so much respect in dealing with people that way. They're almost overwhelmed by it. Yes?
So you're saying that we should ask them what they think our product is worth or our services is worth?
If it comes up. So what happens initially, right, is I say, okay, this is the product or service, this is the price.
Okay, so you first throw out the price.
What I think is a fair price.
Okay.
I'm not trying to gouge people, just a fair price. If they come back and say, is that negotiable?
Okay.
Then I say, let's talk about what's fair. If in fact it is negotiable. If it's not negotiable, because there's some fees that are third-party fees that are just not negotiable, again, I'm honest with them. I have no flexibility about those fees. There's nothing I can do about it. They are what they are. It's, if you want this, then that's part of the fee that you're going to have to pay. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm honest with them, because some fees we have the ability to move around, and some fees we don't. They're third-party fees, and that's it. Equifax isn't going to cut the cost of their credit report because I asked them to. They're going to laugh at me. Again. But it's always being honest with people, and whenever there's any kind of a contentious thing, the trick is always the same, is to say what's true that I can say that will frame the perspective. And in pricing, what's true is what's fair is best for everybody. And you can even get into it deeper by saying, if I resent you for having pushed me into a fee that I think is not fair and respectful of what I offer, it can't help but affect my performance. And if I charge an egregiously high fee, I'm going to live in guilt, and I'm Jewish, I got enough of that. Don't want any more. So the idea is to focus on fairness when you're dealing with pricing. I have notes. What comes after that? Yes?
About that price and fairness, I found that intriguing. Do you begin by saying that what's fair is best for everyone? Or do you give a specific price first?
Now, I always start out with what I think is fair. If they're willing to go along with what I think is fair, move on to the next deal.
Got it.
Only dealing with it when it comes up as an issue, as a stress, a conflict. That's when I trot that out. Otherwise, no harm, no foul. I think it's fair. You agree with me? Let's move on.
Got it.
The next thing is, yes?
So then should I go higher? So in case they don't think it's, they're gonna negotiate anyway. Most people are gonna negotiate.
No, my opinion, okay, just my opinion. My opinion is come out with what's fair. Because what I've seen, Heather and I were talking about fees yesterday. And what I've seen is that if you have a good rapport with somebody, they're going to want you to make a fair fee. They're not going to fight against that. And the more trust and respect there is, the more they'll deal with you in good faith. That's been my experience. And so if I put the fee high thinking they're going to negotiate me lower, I don't feel good about that because I don't feel that I'm acting in good faith if I'm quoting a price that I think is higher than it ultimately should be.
Well, how about if you don't think that, like for example, I'll just use my services. So I would, based on the, I'm just gonna throw a number out there. Let's just say I think it's 2,000.
Right.
But based on my research, most people are willing to pay 1,300. So I make it, 1,400, let's say. But I believe that it's worth 2,000.
You've got to find your own peace with yourself about what you think is right. You got to find your own peace, because I've had loans where I told the person, because somebody was willing to do it for dirt, and I said, I'm not willing to do that. And he said, I have no problem with that. I'm going to go with the other guy. I totally respect what you're saying. So for your own sense of well-being, you've got to be true to yourself. And sometimes being true to yourself means walking away from the deal. And you know what? It's the best thing you'll ever do. Because anybody that's been in sales for a long time knows that one of the most glorious days in sales is the day you fire your first client. Is the day you say, I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work out. We're not going to get along. It's going to be a horrible experience for both of us, so we're not going to do this. And the people go nuts when you do that because they want to fight, which is one of the reasons I don't like to do it. It doesn't happen very often, but it's the most glorious day. You ask anybody who's had a long-term sales career, they'll tell you it's the most glorious day in sales they've ever had, when they realize that they're not forced to deal with people that won't deal with them in good conscience and good faith. Because dealing with those people will ruin your life in no time flat. I promise you that. And once the option has been selected, the price has been agreed to, now we're talking into what are the responsibilities to make this happen? And you tell people, right, so this is what I'm going to need from you. If it's the mortgage business, I'm going to need you to produce documents when I ask for them. I'm going to need you to follow through and asking questions about things you have questions about. I'm going to need you to do X, 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 X. I need to know if you're going to be out of town and unavailable at any time during this process. I need you to keep me informed. And so you go through the responsibilities of what everybody has. The also important aspect of responsibilities is to realize what our responsibilities are. And one of the big problems that a lot of salespeople have that really just, oh God, it makes sales horrible, is we feel we're responsible to make things work. And you know what? Let's take a look at that, because it's not true. Because in order for things to work, other people have to cooperate. And we're not in control of whether or not other people cooperate. We can influence whether or not they cooperate, but we sure don't control it. Oh, God, would we like to, but we don't. So what is it ultimately that we're responsible for? We're responsible for acting in good faith, doing everything in our power to make it come out good for everybody, a win-win solution. We're responsible for being honest. One of the things that's really helped me a lot when I've gotten in these situations where I'm tied up in knots is I've said to myself, can I do everything, have I done everything that I could do that was positive and constructive in this circumstance? And oftentimes I'll think of things I haven't done and I'll run out and do them. But when I finally get to the point where I answer that question, no, I'm at peace with the situation. I actually can say, you know what, I have done everything I can do, and that's it. I've done what I can do, and the rest is in, the hands of whatever. And the reason this is important is it's going to save you all kinds of grief from beating yourself up when something you did not have control over caused the problem. But if you look at the honesty of it, we're getting back to looking at honesty to solve stress, right? The honesty of it is, does it really make sense to beat yourself up over something that you didn't have any control over? It's crazy. Except for the fact that we all do it. So that's one of the things I want to take you guys to take away from this, is that anytime there's stress, our natural position is to be happy and enjoy ourselves with our clients and what we're doing. And if that's not happening, then we got to look at where can we be more honest. And one of the big places is about what we are and are not responsible for. So that is a very big piece. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Expectations. The pain in life is the difference between what you expect and what happens. So in dealing with our clients, we need to set expectations. They can't be so low that they're ridiculous. I mean, they have to be believable, right? If you think that, if I think a loan is going to be approved on Tuesday, I say sometime this week. So it's covering that, right? But if I can call them on Tuesday and say it's done, that's a good thing. So I've exceeded. So you try to set it up so that you can exceed expectations. You tell people what to expect. It's going to take, this piece is going to take this long, this piece is going to take this long, so that they have a sense of security that things are progressing as they should. But it's very important to manage the expectations and to be clear about what the expectations are. It kind of fits with responsibility. You want to stand over here? Bad news. Despite all of our best intentions, things happen. And it's horrible. And we don't want to deal with it. This is the best way I've found yet to convey bad news. Get hold of the person and say, I have bad news to tell you. I wish I didn't. And it's difficult for me because the last thing I want to do is give you bad news. But I feel I have a responsibility to be honest with you. And then I tell them what the bad news is. And after I tell them what the bad news is, I try, to the extent I can, to tell them what our best response to that is to continue moving forward. But I will tell you, in the more than 20 years I've been doing this, I have not had one person explode on me doing this. Yes?
Scott, would you repeat that? I love that. I have bad news and then.
I have a cheat sheet for you guys of my gems, and that's on there.
It's beautiful.
Right in that folder, right there on your way out.
All right.
And you know why I did that? Because you are not the first person to ask me to write that down. But in all my years, I've not had one person, they go like, oh God, but not, go ballistic, right? Start screaming at me, which I really don't like. That is probably the most difficult thing that we have to deal with. But to summarize all of this, put it all in one big bundle, you should be having a great time enjoying your clients and enjoying sales. I have clients that I take out to lunch even when I'm not doing business with them because I like them and I enjoy their company and we respect and like to spend time together. That's what sales should be. And if it's not that, the reason it's not that is because there's something that you're making an improper assumption about. That if they got to know me, they really wouldn't like me. Probably not true. If they, I don't know what it could be. But if you're not enjoying yourself, they don't want to spend time with me. They only want to talk to me when they need something from me. It's not true. There's all kinds of assumptions that we all are commonly making in sales that are just not true. And any time that we feel stress or reticence, it's a red flag to investigate what assumption am I making that's not true and what actually is true in this situation. So that's the entire message in the whole banana. And this time, I want to open it up for questions.
Regarding the bad news, if the client feels like the product that was delivered, there's something that's not quite right with it, and now they're looking at you thinking, not saying, they're thinking that you didn't tell them everything about this product.
Well, the first thing that you would hope is that they took that initial promise to heart and would actually tell you.
Okay.
Okay? Because, again, it harkens back to the same thing. It's really hard to solve problems you don't know about. So, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. It's just, it seems like could be a disconnect there where the client feels like you withheld something and now they've lost a little bit of trust in you.
Right.
And they don't know whether or not they should tell you, or maybe they didn't ask enough questions in the beginning
Right?
and to find out. And maybe it was your third party delivering the product that may have been somehow altered somehow.
So is there a question there?
The question, I guess, maybe it is back to your promise, that the question would be, how do you regain that trust? Even if they tell you that, this product is not what I thought it was going to be. And they tell you that.
Then the response is you have to determine, can you make it right? I mean, it's all about the same thing, okay, is that the basic fundamental question in responding to everything is how can I be as honest as possible with as much compassion as I can muster? So if there's nothing that can be done, you have to tell them, I'm sorry, there's nothing that can be done, or I'm really sorry, or if there's something that can be done, you figure out what can be done. But the overall guideline, the place to go to, the question to ask is, how can I respond to this person with the greatest amount of kindness and honesty that I can muster? And that's the best you can do. We get back to the best you can do again. That's the best you can do. Yes?
I was wondering what your walkaway signals might be. In other words, there are clients from hell, and rather than getting caught into that kind of relationship with all the problems, what would be the one thing you might look at to avoid getting into those issues?
That's a great question. The question is how do you determine somebody that you should turn and run from? And for me, in my particular style, it's really easy. Because I'm a really open person. Maybe you figured that out by now, right? And if somebody isn't responding easily and kind, I know they're hiding something. And they're not being open and genuine with me. So if I'm going to be this open, kind, supportive, I want to learn and listen to you kind of person, and they're going to be withholding and secretive and like that, I'm out of there. I had one time, I gave us a bunch of disclosures to this attorney. And the attorney said, I won't sign the disclosures. So I said, oh, well, they're just disclosures. It's just making you aware of things. It's not creating an obligation on your part. It's just making you aware of the terms. He said, I won't sign it. I said, goodbye. And I grabbed the papers and ran out the door. Seriously. This is just like, the Fair Credit Act. We're making you aware of what it is. You don't want to acknowledge that the Fair Credit Act exists? I mean, if you're not going to go there, I'm going there. So yeah, that's for me, is that, and you can viscerally feel, right? If somebody's meeting you at the level you're at, in terms of openness, and so did that answer your question? Yes?
In your experience, when you talk about expectations, I found, for me, a lot of times you have to find out what their expectations are and taper them way down.
Well, I mean, you tell them, look, you said, this is the real world. Again, it's like, my job is to tell you what I can do. This is what I'm capable of doing and delivering. This is the time frame. This is the cost. These are the mechanics. This is what I'm capable of doing. It will meet your objective. Do you want to do that? I mean, if it doesn't happen naturally, my close, if you will, is after we've gone through all this stuff, I'll say to the client, do you want to do it? And I wait for them to tell me yes or no. And if they say I want to think about it, I say, great. You got my number. Anytime you're ready to proceed, you let me know. I don't do the, slap them over the head, overcoming 7 objectives, and, tear their heart out until they'll sign. I don't do that. I can't live with that. That's going back to what I thought in college of sales is pushing things on people you don't want or need. And I just couldn't live with that, and I don't think anyone in good conscience could either. Yeah.
More a statement of, what I'm appreciating so much about what you're sharing is it's about honesty. And if it's not going to be honest, it's not going to be fun. And when you see that being breached and the attorney does this, that, it's like, okay, you can't it's not gonna be honest?
And to that point about honesty, I do a whole bunch of like no points, no fees refinance, no cost refinances, right? And so my clients say, well, how do you make money? And I take out the rate sheet and I say the lender gives us a credit, and this is the credit, and it pays all the fees and stuff. And okay, but my point is that if you have a relationship with people, they want to know what's going on. And if you're saying you're going to give them something and not charge them for it, they want to understand what's going on. And the answer is to be completely honest. You pull out the sheet and you say they're going to give me a credit of 2.8% of the loan amount, and that's going to pay my fee in all the years too. And they go, okay. But there's no stress. There's no stress in it because you're not hiding anything. And they go, okay, that makes sense. I didn't know that worked that way, but that's good. Somebody had a question? Yes?
Did you ever do cold calling, or what was your approach to cold calling?
Great question. What was my approach to cold calling? When I got into mortgage business, the guy hands me this manual of CPAs. He says, call all of them in Southern California. So I thought, what can I tell these people that is honest? Because to me, if I'm going to have fun, it's got to be honest, right? So at that time, it was refinance mania. And you couldn't get anybody on the phone for love or money. So I called these people up and I said, I'm new in the mortgage business, and that means I have time for you and your clients. I was honest. I wasn't saying anything that wasn't true. And I got some high-level business managers. I mean, I've done loans. Out of that call, I've done loans for Ed Harris, Kim Basinger. I mean, I've done loans for some, A-listers. Just out of dialing that phone and saying exactly that. And I had fun doing it. Because it was genuine, it was true. No matter where you're at, there's something that you have that's valuable. And again, by being honest with yourself, you need to identify what that is and put it out there. I knew that no one was getting their phone calls returned. And I had time. Great question. Now comes the most nerve-wracking part of this presentation for me. I'm going to ask you to pair up again and share with somebody one thing that you learned today that was valuable, that you can apply to improve your life in some way. Go.
He articulates, I think you and I do. He just articulates better than we do. Like conspiracy, there are just best ever.
I can't imagine making cold calls. That means you'll be my number.
This will do. If somebody gets a bad rating or a decline, this is very helpful. Despite our best intentions, our best efforts, I have bad and I wish I didn't. I like that. I've had to make a couple of phone calls in the last month, and I wish I had this like
Yeah, incorporate both things, I think. And I had to hustle back to Santa Barbara to get it. It was. We probably, by the first due on...
Okay, that's enough of that. Now comes the part that I was telling you about that I'm really worried about.
Future mutual.
So everybody sit down. Please. This is the part that I'm worried about.
You lost control.
Is there anybody that's willing to tell me in the audience something that they learned that they're going to apply that's going to improve their life?
what you talk about in sales, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a consultant, except I am a salesperson.
Right.
And what you're saying is, I'm negotiation, things I do and interactions I have, I can use that, I can use that. Gonna be in the next, actually, couple of weeks is gonna be very helpful to me. Very helpful. I'll send you an email.
This is incredibly self-serving, but anybody else?
Can we trust you,
Okay.
Scott?
Heather,
The mental checklist, have you done everything you can?
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll find something you didn't do. Then you can say, okay, I'll do that. But don't beat yourself up.
I actually found that what you said, that having fun, the attitude of having fun, I think makes life much easier and probably more successful.
I liked your definition of sales as a compassionate way of meeting someone's unmet need. Period.
it really works for people that have a conscience.
Scott, I've got bad news.
We were gonna role play that, but I ran out of time.
That's great, I'm gonna use that.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna use that.
But I would, oh, one more thing?
There's so much, in our, as I go through life, is reminders. And so much of what you said, there's such good content to remember. It's not like I remember all these things all the time. So I really appreciate that, I want as little stress as I can have in my life. And being honest is a path to keeping that clean, so that there's not stress.
Who knew being honest was a good idea? On your way out, I took what I thought, and you mentioned, were some of the great one-liners or concepts, and I put them on a piece of paper, and there are more pieces of paper than there are people in that folder. So help yourself on the way out. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Good.
Thank you.